Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
I am joined now by Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, who's an immigration attorney in Texas. It's been a while since we've talked, Kate, and things have not gotten better.
No, they have not.
We have been seeing reports all day today about these ICE raids in Chicago and where they are and who they're scooping up. But I know that Chicago is not the only city that is seeing this. You're based in Austin, is that correct?
I am, and we had some actions in Austin yesterday, Sunday, and there were the local Austin ICE brought in the DEA from Houston to conduct these actions. And it appears, as far as I can tell, what they're doing right now is what I call targeted actions plus collateral arrest. So rather than going to the supermarket where a lot of immigrants shop, what they're doing is they're going to the home of someone who is on their list. Either maybe they have a removal order, they have, some type of criminal interaction in the past, and then they'll arrest everyone sort of around. So if there's anybody else in the house, or in one case in Austin, they followed someone who left their house and then arrested both that person and the passenger of their car. That seems to be what they're doing in this sort of first wave of, deportations.
Because what? It's arrest now and find out later whether or not you're a citizen?
Well, yeah. I mean, and, I had another client who was pulled over. He was driving the car. He's undocumented, no criminal history. His wife is a U.S. citizen, and their 3 little kids were in the back seat. She doesn't know how to drive, so he was driving and was pulled over for his license plate, nothing. And the police officer called ICE. 9 ICE agents showed up and took the husband away. And now because the wife wasn't able to drive and her children were in the car and the baby was needing formula and diapers and they were stuck by the side of the road, I think because of that, ICE ended up bringing him back 3 hours later. I'm not sure they would have had there not been those extenuating circumstances.
So one of the things that Governor Pritzker and also Mayor Brandon Johnson have said repeatedly is that there is going to be no cooperation, no assistance offered by the Chicago police. If the Chicago police are, showing up somewhere and taking a report or talking to a family and they realize somebody in the house is undocumented, it is not part of their job to leave and then call ICE and say, oh, by the way, we were just at this house. Do things work differently in Texas?
Certainly they do in most parts of Texas. There's a lot of jurisdictions that have these cooperative agreements. They're called 287G agreements, where the local police authorities are essentially deputized to enforce immigration laws. But also, a lot of this stuff, officers can go rogue, even in a, so-called sort of sanctuary area where the local police policy is not to cooperate. An officer still might call ICE, and ICE would certainly be willing to come and check it out.
These are extraordinary things that are happening, but it's not. This is not a bug. This is a feature. It's been Tom Homan, who's talked about this. They've talked about, we're going to do these roundups, and we're going to get who we get. Kind of like we'll sort it all out later. And this just reminds me of seeing interviews with immigrants before the election saying now they were going to vote for Trump because he was going to get rid of the bad immigrants, but he wasn't going to get rid of them because they were a good immigrant. They don't really care, do they?
No, they don't. And that is certainly evident in the comment section of my social media videos, because I do a lot of, updates about what's happening. And it's very clear that the base, and Stephen Miller and the Trump administration, to them, just by virtue of being out of status, either maybe somebody entered with a visa that expired, or they entered without inspection, or they're an undocumented person, in the eyes of, whatever we'll call them, the enforcers, let's say, being undocumented equals criminal. And the most severe form of punishment is warranted in their minds. I've had people on my comments calling for, the murder of people. It's like somebody said, just kick them out of the plane, and it doesn't matter, who cares, the whole family can go with them. And it's just quite shocking and heartless, really, especially for those of us who, pay attention and know immigrants and know their histories and who they are, and, have respect for what they've gone through, what has gotten them here. But mostly it's, I'm so impressed by all the immigrants I know and how hard they work, and all of this. They've left everything behind and came here just in some cases to make a better life for themselves and their children. And isn't that admirable? Isn't that something that we would want around us? It's just when you know and love immigrants, and then you hear these words on the other side from people who clearly don't know immigrants, it just tends to be really heartbreaking and I think fatiguing for a lot of us to just hear this drumbeat of hatred. It's really overwhelmingly exhausting.
When you get this feedback to the videos you post, do you have a sense of where it's coming from? I mean, are these really, truly people who feel that somehow they would have a better career if it weren't for immigrants? Is it people who just don't want anybody who's not white to be around? Do you get a sense for what the motivation is?
Well, I think in some of these cases, I really do believe that these are bots, that they're not real people. And I try and look and see, does this person have any followers or any information? But in other cases, where it's obviously a human, they do sometimes just come out with the truth. Like one person a couple of days ago said, "Make America white again," in response to one of my videos. And then another person said, "Well, I guess it's only white people that get questioned," and they'll just say it outright. And I'll actually repost these comments with videos and say, you're not going to win any morality prizes, but at least you're telling the truth about what is at the heart of all of this. Because I think that's it. And everything, anything else that people are saying is, to me, it's a lie.
Some of the farmers who were interviewed before these mass roundups started being planned and executed, there was, I remember, a dairy farmer who said, "Look, my dairy farm runs 24/7. Without immigrants, it doesn't run. So if there are raids here," I can't remember, he was up north, it might have been North Dakota or South Dakota. He said, "My dairy farm shuts down in 48 hours. And, I know that here in Chicago, a lot of restaurants are having some of their kitchen staff not show up because they're terrified the restaurant is going to be raided. And, people, I saw one video with a guy standing by his farm field, and he said, "You know what? Food prices are going to really go through the roof because look behind me. Nobody's picking these crops." When do you think people will wake up to what's going on and the effect it's going to have on all of us?
Well, hopefully soon. I was looking at the stats today, and it was like multiple trillions of dollars would be the economic impact of a true mass deportation of the undocumented population. Absolutely apocalyptically devastating to our economy if it were to actually occur. So my hope is that all of this is just like early, splashy, make good on campaign promises, do a bunch of things that people talk about in the media and everybody feels satisfied, and then turn to, actually a, work visa expansion or something like that. But if they keep hard charging the way that they are, we're only in week one, which is kind of baffling, but if they keep going, it's going to get real bad real fast economically for people.
I'm talking to Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, who is an immigration attorney based in Austin, Texas. We're going to continue our talk right after this.
Don't turn that dial.
A dangerous mistake to make.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, returns right now on WCPT 820.
Joining me is Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, who is an immigration attorney in Texas. And in Austin, Texas, there are ICE raids being conducted just as we have seen here in Chicago. Some of the stories, there's a story in the Tribune, Kate, about a woman who got a call from her husband's place of employment where he had worked for 10 years saying, hey, your husband didn't show up to work today. And within minutes, there were ICE agents banging on her front door. I guess they figured if he didn't have his paperwork, there would be other people in the house that didn't as well. One of the things that some of the activist organizations have been doing up here in the Chicago area is telling everybody and anybody going out into the neighborhoods to explain to people what their rights are, that they don't have to open the door, that an administrative warrant is not the same thing as a warrant signed by a judge. But it's really hard. Most people, have no experience with the legal system. And the one expert I talked to last week said, even if you open your front door a crack to hear what somebody has to say, that constitutes, quote unquote, opening your door for them, and they can then legally enter. I mean, it's really tricky, Kate.
It is tricky, and it's hard to know what to do in a particular situation, whether racism is driving the enforcement, and if you just cooperate a little bit, does this officer just want to make sure that you don't have a warrant and then they're going to let you go, or are they looking for evidence that you're from another country? But I think that you are right, and all of these activists who are out there getting out the Know Your Rights information are correct, that this is the way that immigrants can defend themselves in these times, is to enforce their own rights, and they're protected under the Constitution just like anyone else. They have the right to free speech. They have the right against search and seizure. They have the right to remain silent. All of that is true. And so, yes, put a sign on the door so the kids don't open the door, and everybody knows we don't answer the door when someone's knocking. And if they are, we're going to ask them to slide the warrant under the door, and we're going to see if it's really the name of someone living there. I saw a video just yesterday of an ICE action in Austin or near Austin where ICE was looking for someone who used to live in that house, but they were there temporarily. But luckily, in this particular situation, I said, okay, this person's not here anymore. We'll see you later. But in other scenarios, if the door is open, they're going to start asking around. But again, if an ICE officer, a police officer is asking someone, where are you from? How long have you been here? How did you get here? Et cetera. No one should be answering those questions, really, unless they're a U.S. citizen or they have a green card. Then it's like, just do not answer the questions, because it's only going to lead to trouble for people. And so standing strong in those stressful moments and enforcing your right to remain silent, asking for a lawyer, do not sign anything. That's what's going to help save people in these really awful times.
The person I spoke to last week said that their advice to folks was, do not answer any question, whether it's about you or somebody else. Don't speculate. Don't offer anything about anybody. And just keep saying, like, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. Is that advice that you would also give?
Yes, although I would say, rather than I don't know, I would say I'm exercising my right to remain silent. I want to speak to a lawyer. And also saying, am I being arrested? If there's a raid happening, let's say somebody's at work and immigration shows up, or they're, at a church and immigration's out in the parking lot and some officer says, what's your name, et cetera. The response to them is, am I being arrested? And if they say no, you just walk away calmly. You don't run away. You just say, okay, thank you, goodbye, have a good day. If they say yes, now depending upon where you live, like in Texas where I live, it's a requirement to identify yourself if you're being arrested. So you have to either show a document or give your name, address, and date of birth. But in other states, you don't have to identify yourself in an arrest. So it's important to know that rule. But always the first question is, am I being arrested? And if not, get out of there.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you saw this, but Dr. Phil from television fame apparently was in Chicago going around with the ICE agents. And I guess that was to make sure, just in case the raids were not newsworthy enough, I guess that was to make sure that all of the television cameras were there. Have you had any celebrities join your raids?
Not that I've seen so far, but you know what I have seen, which is just as vile, is the ICE Facebook page has been posting the names and the pictures of people that they're looking for that they've apprehended publicly. We had one, it was a downstate, I think she was a state senator who posted, like if you think you're working, if there's somebody that you think you need to rat out, you can call me and tell me, and I'll make sure I protect you. And I thought, how vile is that? I hate, one of the things that's worst about all of these horrible things that Trump is doing is this idea that you should keep an eye on other people and rat them out. I mean, that we've seen that, with stuff like, did somebody talk to, your neighbor about an abortion clinic? Let us know that those conversations are taking place. And that idea of turning citizen against citizen, to me, is as reprehensible as some of the horrible things they're trying to do. Have you seen any of that? Have any of your politicians said things like that? Well, sure. I mean, it's Texas, so there's probably a proposed bill in the legislature right now on that stuff. And, of course, I think it's Missouri has the new proposal where they're proposing to pay $1,000 for anybody who makes a tip that leads to an arrest. And it's just, don't we all have a memory of what this sounds and looks a lot like? It's a lot like Germany, it's like, of course, this is awful. In those memos that went out about the DEI and the federal, agencies, and that people should be reporting anyone who's continuing DEI activities within the agencies, it's all really, really creepy, and it really should creep everybody out who's paying attention. This business of reporting on each other, here in the Chicago area, people have been, for the most part, really incensed about these raids, that somehow we know that, Trump doesn't like Chicago. He's made that clear. J.B. Pritzker is no fan of Donald Trump's. So we sort of feel that we've been targeted. Texas is a kind of a different, Austin, though, that's pretty liberal. Do you think that's why these raids are focusing maybe on Austin? Because, we don't like those libs. We want to own them. That's right. They have, they do target these cities like Austin where, anything that's like a sanctuary where there's not cooperation, that's where they conduct these actions. So do you think that everybody's saying, he's all into shock and awe. He wants to throw a bunch of spaghetti against the wall and make a big impression. And then, it's going to die down and he's going to spend more time golfing, et cetera, and so forth. But this time around, he's propped up by people who know how to get things done. The first time he was in the White House, he was kind of stumbling along and, he brought generals into his administration. And this time around, I think people know how to manipulate him to get their goals achieved. I'm a little bit worried that's going to be uglier this time around. What do you think? Oh, I totally agree. I mean, it's going to be, they brought back all the policies that took 3 years or 4 years to build in the first administration in, one day, on day one. So it's all going to be very fast and furious. And so it's going to be really important for activists and impact litigators and everybody, to act as fast as possible.
What do you think is going to be happening next? And how many calls are you getting from people?
So I think we're going to see these actions increase over time. We're going to see these targeted actions, and they're going to do more expansive raids. And, hopefully, like we talked about, some of the economic impacts will become obvious, and it will slow what they're doing. But we'll have to wait and see. And Joan, I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to go. I'm being called to a live TV interview, and they've called me 5 times. So
Okay.
Get on camera.
Thanks, Kate. Take off.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.